The movie starts with Charlotte, best known as Charlie, an office temp and aspiring fashion designer. However, her fashion choices are, well, unique. She takes on various random jobs, including being a dog walker. One day, she reads her horoscope, which advises her not to leave the house, but it is too late, as she is already out of the house. While at the shore, a hunky man jogs past her and winks, and Charlotte smiles back. Later, at a cafe, she encounters a rude man berating a barista for getting his coffee order wrong. After he leaves, Charlotte picks up the money he dropped and puts it in the tip jar. Coincidentally, she runs into the hunky man from earlier, and they exchange smiles, but Charlotte leaves before they can talk further. Back with her friends, they have a tarot reading, and Charlotte mentions seeing the same guy twice that day. Her friends are surprised she didn't talk to him, and they express concern that she's not pursuing relationships or intimacy. Charlotte describes her ideal man, which bores her friends, who are too cool to be bothered. At her temp job at a health center, Charlotte has to deal with disgusting tasks. Later, she helps her friend at a party by serving food, and she bumps into the hunky guy again, making it 3 times in 2 days. It turns out to be his party, and he's moving from San Francisco. Charlotte's friends agree that he's a hottie. Charlotte tries to get noticed while Dr. Kevin Fields talks to his friends, and when he calls her back to check what she's serving, she stammers and makes a funny, awkward entrance. The snobbish girl tells her to leave, and she complies. However, Dr. Fields chases after her and assumes she's a crazy dog lady who works in catering. Charlotte apologizes for offending Dr. Fields' girlfriend, but he reveals that he's single. They introduce themselves, and Dr. Fields seems happy with the encounter. The girlfriend, Fiona, perceives Charlotte as a potential rival for Kevin's heart. Later, Charlotte attends a private gathering, where Fiona complains about her painful shoes and tells Charlotte that Kevin is actually gay. Fiona also mentions that Kit is her groom, and they will be getting married soon. Charlotte is taken aback, but when she sees Kevin and Kit together, she almost believes Fiona's words. Charlie continues to dog walk by the beach. When she gets home, she receives a voice message from Kevin Fields, asking if she wants to walk his dog. However, it turns out that Kevin doesn't have a dog, and jokes that she can walk him instead, which creates a bit of awkwardness. Kevin gives her his number, but Charlie is perplexed by his actions. While dog walking on the beach again, Charlie encounters Kevin, who brings her coffee because she never called him back. Charlie brushes him off, feeling confused, as she thinks Kevin is gay. However, Kevin has no idea what she's talking about, and assures her that he is straight. Charlie feels awkward, but Kevin insists on proving he's not gay and asks her out on a date. Charlie remains skeptical and wants more proof. She challenges Kevin to guess her eye color, and he correctly guesses it, impressing her. However, while they are together, the dog bites Kevin's leg, and Charlie takes him to her house to treat the bite. During this time, she reveals that she holds many part-time jobs, such as being a yoga instructor, and she dabbles in various things, as she believes life is too short to stick to one thing. She also reveals that she is an orphan. Meanwhile, Viola Fields, Kevin's mother, is a famous and powerful person in media. At a public event, a hot blonde fan is excited to see her and asks for an autograph, which Viola sarcastically obliges. The hot blonde mentions that she's replacing Viola because she's considered too old, and Viola pretends to be fine, but is upset in the dressing room. Later, Viola hosts a show called Public Intimacy and interviews a singer named Tanya, whom she finds annoying and a bad influence. During the interview, Tanya makes a mistake by confusing Roe and Wade with a sport instead of a law, which angers Viola, leading her to attack Tanya and causing an awkward situation on the show. The movie becomes more interesting when it reveals that Viola is in a wellness clinic. A clip is shown of her before, and Viola explains that she had a breakdown a few months ago, which is why she's there. She claims to feel calmer now, but her therapist doubts her. After successfully completing the program with flying colors, Viola has a realization that her career is not as important as her family, and she decides to focus more on her relationship with her son. However, Ruby informs her that Kevin has a new girlfriend. Viola brushes it off, claiming it's not serious, but Ruby notices her starting to have uncontrollable fits, like repeatedly opening and closing the roof window. Kevin and Charlie decide to move in together, with Charlie subletting her apartment. They plan to have lunch with Viola the next day. As they sneak off for a shower together, Kevin opens up about his family history. He lost his real father when he was just 2 years old, and Viola married several times, focusing mainly on her career. Kevin is her only son. When they arrive at Viola's mansion, Charlie is amazed by its grandeur and the gorgeous garden surrounding it. Ruby warns Kevin that Viola is fresh from the funny farm, suggesting that he should visit in the spring instead. In the gazebo, Viola meets Charlie up close and seems judgmental about her fashion choices. However, during tea, Viola and Charlie begin to bond over their shared interests, in fashion and figure. Kevin nervously observes their interaction, fearing their meeting might not go well. Suddenly, out of the blue, Kevin proposes to Charlie. Viola is shocked and tries to intervene, but Kevin insists. Viola hugs Charlie, pretending to be pleased, but then unexpectedly bashes her against the cake in a fit of rage. However, it turns out to be a fake-out, and Viola still hugs Charlie while pretending to be thrilled. Viola eventually goes to the bathroom, where she drinks an alcoholic drink from her medicine cabinet to calm herself down in the midst of the emotional situation. The atmosphere becomes tense as everyone tries to navigate Viola's unpredictable behavior. Charlie is over the moon about the random surprise. Meanwhile, Viola is doing her ritual to calm herself and suppress any murderous feelings. She believes that Charlie might be pregnant, so she attempts to get into their headspace. Viola's hair is in disarray, making her look rather peculiar, almost like a chicken. In a rather creepy manner, she implies that marriage might not be the solution, insinuating that Charlie could be pregnant. Kevin disagrees, stating that she isn't pregnant. Viola goes on about the sanctity of marriage, but Charlie retorts by pointing out Viola's own 4 marriages, which thoroughly disgusts Viola. As fate would have it, Kevin receives an urgent call to go to the hospital. This leaves Viola and Charlie alone, and a palpable tension fills the air. Charlie remarks that the situation is a bit sudden, and Viola reluctantly agrees. Charlie seems to be contemplating the sudden decision to get married, feeling overwhelmed by it all. Viola, interpreting this as Charlie having second thoughts about marrying Kevin, feels satisfied, thinking that Charlie doesn't want to get married. However, to Viola's surprise, Charlie happily confesses her love for Kevin and her eagerness to marry him. Suddenly, Viola loudly calls for Ruby, asking for champagne, but Ruby repeatedly refuses to give her the key to the liquor cabinet. Viola keeps pleading before she finally loses her sanity. Charlie asks Kevin if his mom likes her, because she senses an off vibe, but Kevin assures her that Viola loves her, not. Ruby brings back the champagne, and Viola expresses her disapproval of Kevin, a brilliant surgeon, marrying a temp. She throws a fit again, turning to alcohol in an attempt to relax, but finding no solace. Viola doesn't trust Charlie due to her lack of a career, and what Viola perceives as a trampy appearance, leading her to disapprove of the relationship. Ruby suggests that Viola should find a new project, or a husband. Viewing Charlie as her project, Viola decides to adopt the role of a pseudo-investigative journalist, aiming to uncover Charlie's past and potentially use it against her. Viola throws an engagement party for Charlie and Kevin, but the guests arrive dressed formally, in black tie attire, while Kevin and Charlie are dressed casually, under the impression that it's just a picnic. Viola prepares a special dress for Charlie and a tuxedo for Kevin, but she repeatedly introduces Charlie as a temp, almost as if she's trying to insult her. Viola is also presented with a vintage dress and shoes to wear, but she senses that something is wrong with them. Meanwhile, Viola tries to set Fiona up with Kevin, leading her to where Kevin is dressing. Fiona attempts to seduce Kevin, creating further tension. Charlie faces difficulty fitting into the dress, which is 2 sizes too small, and she catches Fiona kissing Kevin. Feeling upset and embarrassed, Charlie starts doubting her suitability for Kevin. However, Kevin reassures her of his loyalty and declares that they belong together. This reassurance helps Charlie regain her composure, and she remains determined to proceed with the wedding. In the meantime, Charlie becomes aware of Viola's increasing contempt towards her. To cope with the situation, Charlie starts expressing herself through painting and showcases her artistic talent. In the morning, Viola wakes up feeling hungover and depressed. Ruby informs her that Charlie is clean and has no questionable double life or criminal records. Viola, however, insists that something must be wrong with Charlie to bring her down. Ruby reminds Viola that she's supposed to be healed from her breakdown and suggests she should let go of negative thoughts. But instead, Viola gets an idea to drive Charlie crazy. While cuddling with Kevin, Charlie receives a call from Viola. Viola invites Charlie to lunch next week, and Charlie happily accepts the invitation. Ruby anticipates the need for vodka, considering the upcoming interaction between Viola and Charlie. Later, at a fancy restaurant, Ruby finds Viola waiting, but feels out of place. As they place their orders, Viola talks about her own wedding in a church, while Charlie and Kevin have decided on a non-religious ceremony. However, Viola takes it upon herself to start deciding the wedding arrangements, and even offers her place for the wedding. When Charlie starts chewing her nails out of habit, Viola stops her and oddly pulls out a strand of hair, keeping it for DNA purposes. Charlie shares her allergies with Viola, mentioning nuts, eggs, shellfish, blueberries, and soy. Viola takes note of this, perhaps planning to use the information for something. Despite Charlie's reassurances that she has everything under control for her wedding, Viola continues to plan and impose her ideas, leading to frustration on Charlie's part. Viola even gifts a tacky wedding planner book featuring a picture of herself and Kevin. To add insult to injury, Viola gives Charlie a huge crucifix necklace, hinting at her own past purity and suggesting that Charlie might not be a virgin. As Viola persists in planning the wedding, it becomes evident that her ideas don't align with Charlie's style. Frustrated, Charlie tries to smile through it all and drinks to cope. Viola claims to have contact with Charlie's bridesmaids, but seems to be overstepping her boundaries. When the topic of the honeymoon arises, Viola makes suggestions that Charlie rejects and refuses. At one point, Viola feigns sickness, pretending to look for her pills, and then pretends to faint, possibly trying to gain attention or manipulate the situation. Charlie brings Viola to the hospital, where Kevin explains that Viola had an anxiety attack and tends to say things in distress. Charlie admits that she lost her temper at lunch because Viola had been pushing her boundaries. However, Kevin brushes it off, asking for understanding, since Viola is all alone. The psychiatrist expresses concern about Viola's anxiety and psychotic breakdown, suggesting that she needs care from her relatives, meaning both Charlie and Kevin have to take care of her. Kevin convinces Charlie to see Viola, who pretends to be weak, and apologizes for her actions. Charlie reciprocates the apology and asks if Viola would like to help with the wedding, but Viola claims her nerves aren't up to the task. Kevin suggests that Viola should live with them for a while, but Viola insists that Charlie must forgive her first. Charlie agrees to forgive her, and Viola moves in, with many boxes that barely fit in their house. Ruby warns Charlie to be cautious, but Kevin assures her it will be fine. Just as they are about to kiss, Viola interrupts suddenly, offering a beautiful plate to Charlie, who appreciates the gesture. Viola hugs Charlie tightly, making her uncomfortable, and promises to be a good housemate. Charlie has doubts, but Kevin sees this as a positive sign. During the night, Viola bursts into loud crying, awakening Charlie. Viola claims she can't sleep and feels terribly alone. Charlie reassures her that she's not alone and inquires about her pills. Viola remembers them and asks Charlie to fetch them for her. From this point, Charlie senses that Viola might be planning something. Charlie hands her the pills, but Viola adds more tasks, asking for Evian water with ice. Viola continues crying, and as Charlie leaves her alone to drink her pills, Viola suddenly asks Charlie to sleep beside her since it's her first night in the house. While sleeping, Viola becomes violent in her sleep, having a nightmare, and hitting Charlie, causing her distress and fear. Charlie goes out for her dog walking job, and due to her poor sleep, she ends up dozing off during work. When she returns home, she is met with an awful smell in the kitchen. Viola is attempting to cook dinner for Charlie, but the kidney pie she made looks unappetizing and tastes terrible. Despite the bad taste, Charlie coughs down the pie and lies that it's good, to spare Viola's feelings. Later on, Viola informs Charlie that she has redone her will to include Charlie as her new daughter. Charlie tries to decline the gesture, but Viola insists, presenting a ledger with questions that lawyers will ask, covering topics like citizenship, hereditary matters, and even body counts, along with a prenuptial agreement. Angry and annoyed, Charlie daydreams about slapping Viola with a pan, but it's just her frustration speaking. Viola decides to continue the discussion on another day, and Charlie volunteers to clean up. Viola claims to have had a difficult night, which Charlie finds hard to believe, further exacerbating their tension. As Charlie channel surfs and settles on a horror movie, Viola appears in spooky attire, scaring Charlie and causing her to scream. Viola is dressed in oriental costumes from prominent people and sits too close to Charlie on the couch, despite having plenty of space. They watch the horror movie together, but Viola acts like a curious child, constantly asking questions about the plot and the characters' actions. Charlie urges her to stop talking and just watch the movie, but Viola's continuous chatter keeps dragging on, making it difficult for Charlie to focus and enjoy the film. Viola's talking becomes increasingly irritating and is pushing Charlie's sanity to its limits. Charlie ends up sleeping on the couch, leading to more sleepless nights. In the morning, Viola's craziness shows no respite as she unexpectedly presses the air horn, causing Charlie to drop to the floor and wake up abruptly. Viola mistakes the air horn for an air freshener, highlighting her eccentric behavior. Charlie's lack of sleep begins to affect her job, and she ends up dozing off while working. Feeling overwhelmed by Viola's behavior, Charlie calls Kevin to discuss his mother's antics. While in the bathtub, they engage in a naughty conversation, until Viola walks in without knocking, returning the shampoo. Viola takes the phone again and talks to Kevin, assuring him that she's having a wonderful time. She then reveals her plans of buying a house just a few blocks from Charlie and Kevin's place, further monopolizing the conversation. Viola's antics are driving Charlie nuts. Nonetheless, Charlie's good friend advises her not to give up on Kevin. Later, Ramai, wearing Viola's clothes, appears with a secret folder filled with information about Charlie. It seems that Viola has been investigating Charlie, which includes secret photos of her at the beach, implying that someone has been closely watching her. They search through Viola's belongings to find more incriminating evidence. Ramai stumbles upon the pills Viola has been taking and discovers they are not anxiety medication or any pharmaceutical drugs. This raises concerns for Charlie, who decides to inquire about it with her colleagues. Viola goes to Dr. Chamberlain's appointment with Ruby as she's having a bad day. However, Charlie follows them and discovers that Viola is actually going shopping, not to a doctor's clinic. At the restaurant, Charlie learns that Dr. Chamberlain is, in fact, a waiter who Viola might have paid to pose as a doctor and give advice to be close to Kevin and Charlie. Andy, Charlie's colleague, calls and reveals that the anxiety pills Viola has been taking are, in reality, vitamin C tablets. Meanwhile, Charlie prepares a surprise for Viola, but just as Viola arrives from her supposed therapy session, a large and aggressive dog that Charlie is dog walking greets her. Viola becomes afraid and retreats into a corner of the couch, but Charlie comes to the rescue and calms the dog down, accidentally spraying red sauce all over Viola's pristine white outfit in the process. Annoyed, Viola claims her outfit is ruined. To her dismay, Viola finds her room in disarray, as the other dogs Charlie is dog walking have rummaged through and destroyed her expensive belongings. Viola calls for Charlie, who finds the situation amusing, having successfully pranked Viola back. During dinner, Viola drinks a martini, but Charlie, pretending to be concerned, stops her from drinking, citing the danger of mixing pills and alcohol, even though she knows the pills are fake. Charlie gives Viola sleeping pills instead, mixed with water, and Viola unknowingly drinks it. Charlie cooks an exotic dinner, which doesn't suit Viola's taste, and Viola ends up falling asleep on her plate, marking Charlie's revenge as successful. Charlie sleeps well, while Viola is still sleeping in the kitchen. Ruby figures out that Charlie has been pranking Viola, and is impressed with her antics. Charlie plays innocent, and Ruby wakes Viola up. Charlie manages to get a reservation for the three of them at a restaurant. As they sit down, Charlie apologizes to Viola for her insensitivity. She then surprises Viola by asking her to be her matron of honor, since she's no longer a maiden. Viola is taken aback, as she had expected Morgan to be her maid of honor. Despite the surprise, Charlie presents Viola with a specially made peach dress, knowing it's her favorite color. Charlie reveals that she called Viola's psychiatrist and had lunch with them at the Ivy, where the fake waiter pretending to be a doctor works. At this point, Viola catches on to Charlie's scheme, realizing that the psychiatrist is a fake. Undeterred, Charlie continues speaking about their future together, which stirs up emotions in both Viola and herself. She asks Kevin to leave them alone so they can drop the act and be genuine. However, things take a nasty turn as Viola insults Charlie's size, and Charlie retorts by insulting Viola's superficial beauty. Tensions escalate as Charlie warns Viola to leave them alone. The Cold War between them is now over, replaced by an active war. Viola decides to move out of the house with Ruby's assistance, as even Ruby is fed up with Viola's antics and plans to leave her. Charlie bids them goodbye, but not without giving Viola the specially made dress. However, Viola impulsively throws it out of the window, showing her discontent. At the rehearsal dinner, Viola arrives looking impeccably dressed, and Charlie can't shake the feeling that Viola is up to something again. Viola immediately goes over to Morgan and Remai, complimenting them and trying to build rapport, which irritates Charlie. Morgan and Remai seem to enjoy talking to Viola, further fueling Charlie's annoyance. Throughout the dinner, Viola monopolizes the conversation at the table, leaving Charlie to sit and listen passively. Unbeknownst to Viola, Charlie has her own schemes in mind. She surprises everyone by inviting Dr. Chamberlain to the dinner, which visibly angers Viola. Dr. Chamberlain acts his real job as a waiter. As if that weren't enough, another unexpected guest arrives at the door, and it turns out to be Fiona, adding to the tension in the room. Charlie starts questioning Dr. Chamberlain, asking him for details about his background, such as where he went to med school or residency. Meanwhile, Viola leaves, pretending to get gravy, but secretly goes to grind up peanuts, knowing that Charlie is allergic to nuts. Ruby tries to stop Viola, but Charlie hits her to prevent her interference. Viola proceeds to mix the ground peanuts with the gravy, intending to harm Charlie. Ruby warns Viola about the consequences, and urges her not to tell Kevin, but Viola dismisses the concern, claiming it will only cause Charlie's face to swell up. However, their argument is interrupted when Dr. Chamberlain enters the kitchen and unknowingly fetches the gravy mixed with nuts, serving it to the table. They assume Charlie won't take the gravy, but it's too late. She already has a serving of it. Ruby continues to implore Viola to stop her, but Charlie begins experiencing symptoms of her nut allergies. Panicking, Viola and Ruby hide the nuts, trying to cover their tracks. Unfortunately, Charlie's face starts swelling up due to the allergic reaction. Kevin reassures her that the swelling will go down before the wedding day. On the day of the wedding, Charlie's swelling has indeed subsided. Remai arrives at the door and suspects Viola of placing the nuts, but Charlie refuses to believe it. In a surprising twist, Remai reveals that she finally has a date for the wedding, and it turns out to be none other than Dr. Chamberlain, whose real name is Paul. Viola reluctantly wears the ridiculous peach dress, and is horrified by how it looks on her. They use Viola's house for the wedding. Later, as they are dressing up, Charlie looks stunning in her wedding dress. However, Viola enters wearing a white gown, which upsets Charlie even more, as it upstages her. Charlie warns Viola to take it off, but Viola insults her, calling her a tramp, leading to Charlie slapping her. This escalates into a slap contest between the two. During the confrontation, Viola tells Charlie that she will never be good enough for Kevin. Just then, Kevin's grandmother Gertrude arrives, who is known for being cranky and opinionated. Gertrude shows the same animosity towards Viola that Viola has shown towards Charlie. Gertrude is bitter about not receiving an invitation to the wedding and throws insults at both Viola and Charlie. Amidst the tension, Gertrude compliments Charlie, albeit with a subtle insult, before insulting Viola as well. The situation gets even more intense as Gertrude accuses Viola of murdering her son, referring to Kevin's father. Viola fires back, stating that Gertrude never found any woman good enough for her son. At this moment, Charlie sees her own future mirrored in Viola's situation, being taunted by her future mother-in-law. Left alone with Viola, Charlie realizes that Viola will never let them be happy. She comes to the difficult decision to call off the wedding. Ruby enters the scene and reveals that Viola is even worse than Gertrude, because Viola attempted to poison Charlie, something Gertrude never did. Ruby also mentions how Gertrude wore black to Viola's wedding, in a show of disapproval. Viola tries to justify her actions by claiming that she only wants Kevin to be happy. However, Ruby questions if Viola thinks Kevin is unhappy, leading Viola to realize that Kevin is already happy. Meanwhile, Charlie goes to Kevin to inform him that the wedding is cancelled. Just as she's about to speak to him, Viola walks in and requests to talk to Charlie alone. Viola expresses her desire for Charlie not to walk away from the relationship. She admits that she's sad about Kevin being away from her. Charlie admits her fear, but Viola encourages her to take a shot at happiness, promising to stay away from them. Charlie, however, expresses her wish to have Viola in their lives, but with boundaries and rules in place. They come to an agreement, establishing certain terms and deals, such as the frequency of Viola's calls to Kevin and her non-interference in raising their future children. They decide that Viola will be a part of every special day in their new family. Viola negotiates not wanting to be called Grandma, but rather Aunt Viola, and she becomes emotional. Viola dresses up in the peach dress again, and the wedding continues. The newlyweds, Mr. and Mrs. Fields, exit the church together. Viola watches the happy couple walking away to their honeymoon in Hawaii. Kevin returns to bid farewell and thank Viola for everything. During the bouquet toss, Viola catches the bouquet.